retelling of the story of Job by Bible Intelligence. Prologue. The land of Uz, an introduction to a righteous man. In the serene expanses of the east, nestled between sweeping dunes and fertile plains, lay the land of Uz. It was a place where time seemed to flow like the gentle streams that crisscrossed its lands, nourishing the crops and sustaining life. Amidst this bucolic landscape stood a man, an edifice of moral integrity whose reputation was as vast as the horizons of Uz itself. His name was Job. Job was not just any inhabitant of this land, he was its most esteemed. His vast wealth could be seen in the herds of camels that marched like shifting sands across the plains, the flocks of sheep that blanketed the meadows like snow, the oxen that tilled the land, and the donkeys that carried its produce. But more valuable than all these was the treasure of his character. In a world where moral lines often blurred and righteous paths were not always clear, Job was an unwavering beacon of virtue. He was a man blameless and upright, one who feared God and shunned evil. His piety wasn't just an external show, it was an intrinsic part of him, as natural as breathing. Every morning, as the first light painted the skies of Uz, Job would offer burnt sacrifices, thinking, "Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Such was the depth of his devotion, not just for himself, but for those he loved. But what truly set Job apart was not his riches nor his rituals, but his heart. His doors were always open to the weary traveller, his table always laden for the hungry, and his arms always ready to comfort the grieving. He was a father to the orphans, eyes to the blind, and feet to the lame. In the courts of Uz, his wisdom was sought after, and in its streets his justice was praised. Yet for all his piety and prosperity, the curtains of heaven were drawing back, and a celestial drama was about to unfold. A drama that would shake the very foundations of Job's world, test the mettle of his faith, and echo through the annals of time as a testament to human endurance and divine purpose. Chapter 1. The Heavenly Court, a Celestial Bet. Beyond the azure skies, far from the prying eyes of men, a grand assembly was taking place. This was no ordinary gathering. It was the court of the Almighty, where radiant angels presented themselves before the Lord, and celestial beings buzzed with divine duties and missions. Among them, an entity stepped forward, a being different from the others, whose very presence seemed to send ripples of unease. He was the adversary, Satan, the accuser. His eyes, sharp and discerning, had been roaming to and fro across the earth, observing its inhabitants, looking for opportunities and vulnerabilities. Then God, in his unmatched splendor, posed a question, his voice gentle yet thunderous. "Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil." The accuser, never one to be taken aback, responded with a sneer. "Does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you built a protective hedge around him, his household and everything he owns, blessing the work of his hands and multiplying his wealth? But stretch out your hand and strike all he possesses, and he will surely curse you to your face." A profound silence filled the court. The challenge had been issued, a celestial bet that would determine the nature of man's loyalty and love for God. Can true faith withstand the most severe trials? Can righteousness remain unshaken when foundations crumble? The Lord, knowing the heart of Job and the lessons this trial would teach humanity, gave his permission with a firm condition. "Very well. Everything he has is in your hands, but do not lay a finger on his person." With the decree sealed, the adversary departed, ready to unleash calamities upon Job, to test the strength of a man's faith against the might of heaven's drama. Meanwhile, in the peaceful land of Uz, oblivious to the heavenly wager, Job continued in his righteousness, unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon him. Chapter 2. First Calamities, the sudden storms of misfortune. In the land of Uz, the morning sun rose gently, casting its golden hue over lush pastures and bountiful estates. Birds sang their melodies, and a gentle breeze rustled through the trees. It was a day like any other, with Job's servants busily attending to their duties, his children indulging in joyful banter, and his vast wealth evident in the thriving herds and flourishing fields. But in mere moments this idyllic scene would be torn asunder. A servant, panting heavily and drenched in sweat, burst into Job's presence. "The oxen were ploughing and the donkeys were grazing nearby," he began, his voice quivering with fear, "when the Sabaeans suddenly attacked, killing all the servants. Only I have escaped to tell you." Before Job could even process this devastating news, another servant rushed in, gasping for breath. "Fire from heaven fell and burned up the sheep and the servants, leaving nothing but ashes. I alone survived to bring you this news." The words, each more harrowing than the last, struck Job like a dagger to the heart. But the relentless torrent of bad news wasn't over. Yet another messenger stumbled in, eyes wide with terror. "The Chaldeans raided us in 3 bands, seizing the camels and killing the servants. I am the only one left to relay this calamity." Job's heart pounded heavily, his wealth, his workers, all taken away in swift successive blows. But the cruelest cut was yet to come. A final servant, his face etched with unspeakable sorrow, approached Job with a heavy heart. "Your children," he began, tears streaming down, "were feasting in the eldest's house when a mighty wind struck from the desert. The house collapsed, burying them all. None survived." The world seemed to spin, darkness encroaching on every side. The laughter of his children, the pride of his possessions, the fruit of his hard work, all obliterated in the blink of an eye. The land of Uz, once filled with the cheerful sounds of prosperity and joy, now echoed with the mournful cries of a father, a master, a faithful servant of God. Stricken with grief, Job tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell to the ground in worship. Though the weight of his losses threatened to crush his spirit, from the depth of his anguish, Job's voice rose resolute and reverent. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, despite the crushing blows and the whirlwind of misfortune, Job did not sin or blame God for his adversity. The battle in the heavenly realms had taken its toll on earth, but the faith of a righteous man, though tested, remained unbroken. Chapter 3. Job's Desolation. From Riches to Ruin. The once bustling estate of Job lay in ruins. The opulent tents that stood proudly under the desert sun now lay tattered. The air, once filled with the sounds of bleating sheep, the laughter of children and the hum of activity, was now eerily silent, broken only by the mournful winds that swept through the desolation. Amidst the ruins a figure sat in solitude, Job. The righteous man of Uz, whose wealth and influence were unparalleled, was now reduced to a shadow of his former self. His skin, once bronzed and healthy, was now covered in painful boils from head to toe. Each movement brought fresh waves of agony, and the very ground he sat upon was covered in ashes, a poignant symbol of his shattered life. Friends and acquaintances who once sought his counsel and enjoyed his generosity now passed by without a glance, some in fear, others in disdain. The stigma of his sudden ruin had turned allies into strangers. Whispered rumours swirled around, with many speculating about hidden sins and divine retribution. Yet in this bleakness Job's spirit wrestled with profound questions. Why had tragedy struck so suddenly and completely? What had he done to deserve such a fate? His heart, heavy with grief, unleashed an anguished cry. "Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that said, 'A man is conceived.' Why did I not die at birth, come out from the womb and expire?" The weight of his misery was unbearable. The silence of the heavens was deafening, yet, deep within, the embers of faith and integrity continued to glow, refusing to be extinguished. In his pain, Job's questions were not just for himself, but echoed the age-old human quest to understand suffering and the seeming silence of the divine amidst life's harshest storms. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the land of Uz, 3 figures appeared on the horizon. Drawn by news of Job's misfortune, Eliphaz, Bildad and Zophar, friends and fellow seekers of wisdom, had come. Seeing Job from a distance, they hardly recognized the pitiable figure before them. Overwhelmed by the magnitude of his suffering, they tore their robes, sprinkled dust upon their heads, and sat with Job in silent solidarity. For 7 days and 7 nights no words were spoken. Sometimes the deepest sorrows are beyond words. The desolation was palpable, But in the midst of ruin and despair, the presence of true friends offered a glimmer of hope and the promise of a journey toward understanding. Chapter 4. Eliphaz Speaks. The Theory of Retribution. After a week of heart-wrenching silence, it was Eliphaz who finally broke the stillness. A man of age with deep-set eyes that spoke of a life filled with experience, Eliphaz was known for his insight. But more than that, he was a man who deeply believed in the moral structure of the universe, a world where good begets good, and evil is repaid in kind. He began with a note of gentleness. If one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? Yet who can keep from speaking? Then, with a slow, deliberate cadence, Eliphaz introduced his perspective on Job's calamities. Behold, you have instructed many, he began, recalling Job's past as a beacon of wisdom and guidance. But now it has come to you, and you are impatient. It touches you, and you are dismayed. Delving deeper into his theory, Eliphaz expounded upon a worldview firmly rooted in cause and effect. Think now, he urged Job, who that was innocent ever perished, or where were the upright cut off? As I've seen, those who plough iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. He painted a picture of the wicked facing the consequences of their deeds. The terrifying roar of the lion, the fierce voice of the lioness, and the teeth of the young lions being broken. The mighty are not spared. They perish without any to help. Hoping to bring comfort, Eliphaz recounted a mystical experience, a vision in the night, a spirit passing before his face, and a voice whispering profound truths. Can mortal man be righteous before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? The implication was clear. Humans are fallible, and none, not even Job, stand spotless before the divine. Yet in his admonition, Eliphaz also offered hope. Behold, blessed is the one whom God reproves, therefore despise not the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he binds up. He shatters, but his hands heal. To Eliphaz the path was clear. Repentance and seeking God's favour were the remedies. He concluded with a promise of restoration. If you will seek God and plead with the Almighty for mercy, you will be secure and will not fear, and many shall entreat your favour. But amidst his well-intentioned words, a haunting question lingered. Was this truly the answer to Job's anguish? Did the logic of retribution, the principle of just deserts, fully explain the depth of his suffering? The stage was set for a deeper exploration, and the silence of Uz was soon to be filled with more voices seeking understanding. Chapter 5. Job's Lament, a Cry from the Depths. The desolation surrounding Job was palpable. The once thriving lands lay barren, his home a smouldering ruin, and the joyous laughter of his children merely a haunting echo in his heart. As the dust settled and the weight of his losses bore down on him, Job, the man once revered as the paragon of piety and prosperity, found himself on the brink of an abyss of sorrow. With a heavy heart he tore his robe, a cultural expression of grief, and shaved his head. But instead of cursing his fate or lamenting his losses, Job fell to the ground in worship, uttering words that would echo through the ages. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Even in his profound suffering, Job's faith remained unshaken, his trust in God unwavering. However, as the days turned into nights and the nights back into days, the enormity of his pain began to manifest. Grief has a way of burrowing deep, and for Job the external losses paled in comparison to the internal turmoil. Sitting amidst the ashes, a symbol of mourning, he was joined by his wife, who, consumed by her own grief, asked him, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job responded, "Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" In this Job did not sin with his lips. Yet the human spirit can bear only so much, and soon Job's stoic facade began to crumble. His lamentations started as a whisper, growing louder with each utterance, culminating in a heart-wrenching cry, "Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that said, 'A man is conceived. Why did I not die at birth, come out from the womb and expire?'" His words were not those of rebellion, but a deep-seated anguish, a questioning of the very purpose of his existence in the face of such misery. The sky above remained silent, indifferent to his pleas. Job's lament echoed across the desolate landscape, a testament to the depths of human suffering. It was a raw, unfiltered expression of pain, laying bare the soul of a man grappling with the incomprehensible. Yet even in his despair, there remained a glimmer of faith, a faint hope that in the darkness, God was still listening. Chapter 6. Bildad's Assumptions, the Order of Divine Justice. Bildad, one of Job's 3 friends who had come from afar to offer comfort, observed Job with a pensive expression. The 3 had sat with Job in silence for 7 days and 7 nights, a poignant display of their shared grief. But as the days passed, and as Job's lamentations grew more fervent, Bildad felt compelled to speak, to offer his perspective on the nature of Job's sufferings. Clearing his throat, Bildad began, "How long will you say these things, and the words of your mouth be a great wind? Does God pervert justice, or does the Almighty pervert the right?" In Bildad's worldview, the cosmos operated on a principle of cause and effect, overseen by a just and orderly God. To him, Job's sufferings were not arbitrary, but a direct result of some wrongdoing, a deviation from the divine path. Drawing from the wisdom of their ancestors, he continued, "Inquire, please, of bygone ages and consider what the fathers have searched out. For we are but of yesterday and know nothing, for our days on earth are a shadow. Will they not teach you and tell you and utter words out of their understanding?" Bildad believed that the ancient wisdom, passed down through generations, held the answers to Job's predicament. Asserting his stance, Bildad added, "If you were pure and upright, surely now he would rouse himself for you and restore your rightful habitation." To him, righteousness was rewarded, and transgressions were punished. There was an order to the world, and it was maintained by divine justice. However, what Bildad failed to grasp was the nuance of human suffering. His assumptions were black and white, leaving no room for the grey areas that often characterize life's complexities. His words, though well-intentioned, lacked the compassion and understanding that Job so desperately sought. Job listened intently, his face a mask of stoicism. Yet beneath his calm exterior, a tempest of emotions raged. He had lived a life of integrity, and the insinuations of hidden sins stung sharply. But more than the pain of Bildad's assumptions, it was the challenge of reconciling his faith with his. Reality that weighed heaviest on Job's heart. The journey was just beginning, and the discourse on divine justice was far from over. Chapter 7. Job's Despair. Contemplating the Unthinkable. The wind blew gently, rustling the remnants of what was once Job's vast estate. The scene was a poignant reflection of the turbulence inside Job's soul. The words of Bildad had settled heavily upon him, not so much as a balm but as salt in fresh wounds. He turned his gaze upwards, searching the vast expanse of the heavens for some sign, any hint of understanding. "Why did I not die at birth, come out from the womb and expire?" Job began, his voice filled with a blend of pain and perplexity. The depth of his suffering pushed him to the edge of despair, where he wondered if non-existence would have been a kinder fate. "For now I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept. Then I would have been at rest." In his lament, Job spoke of the dead, of kings and counsellors of the earth, of prisoners who found peace in the grave, away from the troubles of the world. To Job, death seemed to be an equalizer, a release from the anguish that now consumed his days and nights. "There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest," he mused. But more than a longing for death, Job's words revealed a deeper yearning, a desire to understand the meaning behind his pain. He addressed God directly, his words a poignant blend of reverence and desperation. "What is man that you make so much of him, and that you set your heart on him? Visit him every morning and test him every moment. How long will you not look away from me, nor leave me alone till I swallow my spit?" In these moments of profound vulnerability, Job wrestled with the very nature of existence. He grappled with the idea of a God who seemed distant in the face of his agony. Yet amidst the depth of his despair, a glimmer of faith remained, a tenacious thread of hope that refused to snap. His friends, witnessing this profound outpouring of grief, sat in heavy silence, the weight of unanswered questions hanging in the air. And as the sun set on another day, the discourse on suffering, justice, and faith continued to unfold. Chapter 8. Zophar's Accusations, the Zealot's Verdict. As the reddening horizon cast a muted glow upon the scene, Zophar, the youngest of Job's 3 companions, took a deep breath. Where Eliphaz and Bildad had shown restraint, Zophar's countenance bore an intensity, his zeal fervently unabated by the palpable misery before him. "Do you think this to be just?" Zophar began sharply, his voice laced with indignation. "Do you say, 'My righteousness is more than God's'? You ask, 'What advantage have I? How am I better off than if I had sinned?'" The sheer audacity of his words struck those present like a slap to the face. There was no preamble, no carefully chosen words, only raw, unbridled reproach. Zophar painted a picture of a grand, incomprehensible God, one who sees the secrets of men's hearts and exacts justice upon the wicked. "Can you find out the deep things of God? Can you find out the limit of the Almighty?" Zophar challenged, his voice rising in a fervent crescendo. "His wisdom is profound and his power is vast. You, Job, by implying injustice, risk the wrath of the Almighty." Continuing his fiery diatribe, Zophar vividly described the fate of those who forget God, their hopes as ephemeral as a spider's web, their confident facade just a fleeting mist that vanishes at dawn. To Zophar, Job's suffering was evident proof of some concealed wickedness, a divine punishment for hidden sins. "But if you will seek God and plead with the Almighty for mercy," Zophar counselled, his tone momentarily softening, "if you are pure and upright, surely then he will rouse himself for you and restore your rightful habitation." In Zophar's world, the scales of justice were black and white, with no room for grey. Good begets blessing, evil begets suffering, a formulaic, transactional relationship with the divine. The chilling silence that followed was palpable. Zophar's words, meant to be a remedy, felt more like a stinging whip on open wounds. As the dust settled and the night deepened, the great chasm between human understanding and the unfathomable ways of the Almighty became ever more apparent. Chapter 9. Job's Defiance. Challenges to the Divine. As the night's shroud deepened and the fires dwindled to mere embers, Job's countenance underwent a transformation. The man, once seated in a pit of despair, now stood erect, his eyes gleaming with a defiance that belied his frail form. The gentle, patient Job was no more. In his place stood a man willing to confront the heavens themselves. "Why do the wicked live on, growing old and increasing in power?" Job began, his voice thunderous, echoing the frustrations of countless souls before and after him. "They see their children established around them, their offspring before their eyes. Their homes are safe and free from fear. The rod of God is not on them." Job's words weren't just mere retorts to his friends, but a direct challenge to the very notions of divine justice. He painted a picture contrary to the beliefs of Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, a world where the wicked often prospered while the righteous suffered. "Yet," Job continued, his voice dripping with anguish, "how often is the lamp of the wicked snuffed out? How often does calamity come upon them, or does God distribute pains in his anger?" The tone of his voice was not one of mere rhetoric. It was a genuine, desperate quest for answers. "Surely I speak of things I do not understand, things too wonderful for me to know," he admitted. "But if I were to summon him and he responded to me, I do not believe he would give me a hearing. He would crush me with a storm and multiply my wounds for no reason." In his heart-wrenching monologue, Job laid bare the paradox of life and the mysteries of divine justice. He expressed feelings of being trapped, of being a pawn in a celestial game, of desiring a mediator between him and God. "If only there was someone to mediate between us, someone to bring us together," Job cried out, his voice hoarse. "Then I would speak up without fear of him, but as it now stands with me, I cannot." His raw, emotional outburst, stripped of pretenses and societal expectations, was a testament to the human spirit's resilience. Amidst the whirlwind of suffering and injustice, Job's audacious challenge to the divine became a beacon of hope for all who dare to question and seek answers in the face of adversity. Chapter 10. Eliphaz's second argument, intensifying the debate. Eliphaz, taking in the force of Job's impassioned defence, shifted uneasily. He adjusted his robe, the fabrics whispering as they rustled, before standing. The elder among Job's friends, his distinguished silver beard a testament to his years, Eliphaz had always been respected for his wisdom. But never had he been confronted with such raw anguish combined with defiant challenge. He cleared his throat, his voice carrying the weight of age and experience. "Can a man be of benefit to God? Can even a wise man benefit him?" Eliphaz began, his tone more assertive than before, hinting at a thinly veiled reprimand. "It is for your piety that he rebukes you and brings charges against you." Attempting to drive home his point of divine omnipotence and human insignificance, he continued, "Behold, the heavens cannot contain him. How then can you, Job, hope to challenge or question his ways?" Eliphaz's strategy shifted subtly. Instead of merely emphasizing human wickedness and the need for repentance, he now sought to remind Job of the vast gulf between the divine and human realms. "Are not your wickedness great? Are not your sins endless?" he pressed on, not allowing Job a moment of reprieve. "You have demanded security from your relatives for no reason. You have stripped people of their clothing, leaving them naked," he accused, alluding to potential hidden sins as the reason for Job's suffering. To Eliphaz, Job's suffering had to have a rational explanation, and in his eyes that explanation was rooted in sin. Unable to fathom a universe where the righteous suffered inexplicably, Eliphaz clung tighter to his worldview, even if it meant accusing his friend of heinous deeds. "Submit to God and be at peace with him," he advised, softer now, almost pleading. "Accept the instruction from his mouth and lay up his words in your heart. Then you will find delight in the Almighty." However, in his zealousness to defend the tenets of his faith, Eliphaz missed the essence of Job's cry. The longing for understanding, for a divine audience, for a break in the silence. The debate intensified not just between friends, but between deeply entrenched beliefs and a reality that defied them. Chapter 11. Bildad and Zophar return, piling on the pressure. The silence that settled after Eliphaz's address was broken only by the gentle rustling of the trees and the distant sounds of livestock. The atmosphere among the friends grew tense, each man lost in the weight of the unfolding discourse. However, Bildad, with an impatient sigh, prepared to retort. "Job," he began, the edge in his voice suggesting a growing frustration, "how long will you speak these things, and the words of your mouth be like a strong wind? Does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right?" Bildad's eyes bore into Job's, seeking signs of acknowledgement or remorse. He clung to a worldview where divine justice was neat, predictable, and evident. To him, Job's protests were nothing short of blasphemy. "If your children have sinned against him, he has delivered them into the power of their transgression," Bildad continued, touching upon a painful truth. The loss of Job's children was still fresh, and invoking their memory was a harsh strategy. The intensity of the debate ramped up. Zophar, the youngest and most impassioned among the three, could contain himself no longer. He leapt to his feet, his voice ringing with conviction. "Should not the multitude of words be answered, and should a man full of talk be justified? Should your babbling put others to silence?" Zophar's approach was direct, confrontational. "Know this," he said, raising a finger for emphasis. "God has even forgotten some of your sin. Can you fathom the mysteries of God? They are higher than the heavens, deeper than Sheol." In Zophar's perspective, not only was Job's suffering justified, but he was even getting off lightly considering the presumed weight of his sins. His view of divine justice was unyielding, a tit-for-tat universe where every sin was met with a fitting punishment. Yet despite their stern words and stringent views, neither Bildad nor Zophar could fully grasp the depths of Job's anguish. For them, the world remained straightforward. For Job, however, the lines between righteousness, suffering, and divine justice were blurring, and he struggled to find clarity amidst the storm. Chapter 12. Job's Affirmation. I know that my Redeemer lives. The wind had softened and the moon hung high, casting a pale silvery glow over the gathering. The atmosphere, heavy with tension from the relentless debate, was pierced by Job's weary but unyielding voice. "How long will you torment me and crush me with words?" Job's voice held a mixture of weariness and exasperation. "Even if I have erred, my error remains with me." Amidst his pain and the confusion of the conflicting arguments, Job's spirit seemed to soar to a place of deep introspection and profound truth. His face, etched with lines of suffering and sorrow, now shone with an otherworldly conviction. "Even if he kills me," Job declared, his gaze fixed as if looking beyond the present reality, "I will hope in him. I will still defend my ways before him." The three friends exchanged uncertain glances, sensing the shift in Job's demeanor. Their arguments and accusations had done little to shake his faith. Instead, they witnessed an astounding affirmation of trust. And then, in a voice filled with deep emotion, Job proclaimed the words that would echo through the ages, a testament to unwavering faith amidst unbearable pain. "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end, he will stand upon the earth." The very air seemed to hold its breath, the gravity of Job's declaration silencing every creature under the vast canopy of stars. "After my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I and not another. How my heart yearns within me." This wasn't a defeated man grasping at straws. This was the affirmation of a believer, someone who even in the pit of despair could see the glimmer of eternal hope. The weight of his trials, the sting of his friends' accusations, the mystery of God's silence, all paled in the face of this unshakable certainty. For all their wisdom and eloquence, the friends could find no words to counter such raw, profound faith. They sat, humbled and silent, as Job's words of hope lingered in the night. Chapter 13. Elih's Intervention, the Voice of Youth. As the debates raged on, an impassioned observer had been silently taking it all in. Elihu, a younger man with fiery eyes and a fervent spirit, had been listening intently to every word exchanged between Job and his friends. With every passing argument, a burning indignation grew within him. Unable to contain himself any longer, Elihu's voice cut through the conversation like a sharp blade, filled with youthful vigor and righteous anger. "I am young in years and you are aged. Therefore I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you," he began, acknowledging the elders before him. "But it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand." Elihu chastised Job's friends first. "I waited for your words, I listened to your wise answers, but you have proved no match for Job, and none of you have answered his words rightly. Beware lest you say, 'We have found wisdom. God may vanquish him, not man.'" Turning to Job, his tone shifted from rebuke to a mix of compassion and challenge. "But Job, listen to my words and hear all I have to say. Surely you have spoken in my hearing, and I have heard the sound of your words. I am pure without transgression, I am innocent, and there is no guilt in me. Yet God finds occasions against me and counts me as his enemy." Elihu's perspective was different from the others. He neither fully sided with Job's friends in their rigid views of retribution, nor did he simply console Job. Instead, he aimed to offer a more nuanced understanding of God's ways, reminding Job of God's greatness and man's limited perspective. "Do you think this is according to justice? Do you say my righteousness is more than God's?" Elihu posed the question, challenging Job's earlier claims. "Beware, lest wrath entice you into scoffing." As the day wore on, Elihu spoke with a passion and eloquence that stunned the gathered men. His words painted a picture of a God too great to be fully understood, a God who speaks in myriad ways through suffering, dreams, and revelations. He emphasized God's justice, goodness, and incomprehensible majesty. The young man's intervention served as a bridge, preparing the way for the climactic divine response. As Elihu's speech reached its peak, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The stage was set for the voice of the Almighty to break the silence. Chapter 14. The Whirlwind. God enters the fray. The atmosphere grew tense and electric. The very fabric of the universe seemed to shift as the winds began to churn. The darkening skies above stirred and a great whirlwind formed, capturing the awestruck attention of all present. This was not merely a natural phenomenon, it bore the weight of the divine. From within the swirling maelstrom, a voice, both thunderous and serene, resonated. "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me." The voice was overwhelming, filling every corner of the vast landscape. The sheer magnitude of God's presence was palpable, reminding every listener of their finite existence in the face of the infinite. The ongoing debate, the pain, the questions, and the despair, all were dwarfed by the magnificence of the divine voice that now commanded the stage. "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding," God continued, his questions emphasizing the vast chasm between the Creator and his creation. "Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy?" The questions flowed like a mighty river, each one underscoring the mysteries of creation and the wonders of the universe. From the storehouses of snow to the wings of the ostrich, from the constellations in the heavens to the depths of the seas, God's interrogation was both a challenge and an invitation to wonder. Job, the man of immense stature and wealth, the one who had faced unimaginable suffering and engaged in profound theological debates, was rendered speechless. His anguish, confusion, and challenges were met with a display of divine grandeur that defied comprehension. But in this overwhelming display there was no harsh condemnation. Instead, there was a revelation of God's vastness and a reminder of his intricate involvement in the minutiae of his creation. The Whirlwind discourse was not merely an answer, it was an experience, an intimate encounter with the Almighty. As the winds began to subside and the voice drew to a close, a profound silence enveloped the land of Uz. The discourse had changed everything, and Job, humbled and awed, prepared to respond to the God who had broken the heavens to speak. Chapter 15. Job's Humility, the Revelation of Human Limitation. The great whirlwind had stilled. The thunderous voice that had echoed from the heavens now lingered in the ears of all who were present. The very air felt heavy with the weight of God's words. As the dust settled, all eyes turned to Job. He stood there, a silhouette against the dimming horizon, his form shrunken not just by his afflictions, but by the immense gravity of the divine revelation he had just witnessed. Every fibre of his being felt the vast contrast between the Creator and the created, the sheer breadth of God's questions, the mysteries of the universe they touched upon, and the wonders of creation they evoked, all pointed to a single profound realization: human limitation. Slowly Job began to speak, his voice a mere whisper compared to the divine resonance that had preceded it. "Behold, I am of small account. What can I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth." The pride, the defiance, and even the despair that had once found a voice in Job's lamentations were now replaced by a deep sense of humility. It was the humility that comes from realizing one's place in the grand tapestry of existence. A humility born from the understanding that while man may seek answers, some truths lie beyond his grasp. "I have spoken once, but I will not answer. Twice, but I will proceed no further," he continued. In these words was an acknowledgement, a yielding to the inscrutable wisdom of God. The man who once challenged the heavens now stood in quiet surrender, recognizing the boundaries of human understanding. Yet this was not a defeatist posture. In his humility, Job was also discovering a deeper intimacy with God. The experience was not just about recognizing his limitations, but about drawing closer to the one who is limitless. It was about finding peace not in answers, but in relationship, not in understanding, but in trust. The friends who had so vehemently debated with him now looked on in silent reflection. They too had been touched by the whirlwind discourse, realizing their own presumptions and the frailty of their wisdom. As night began to fall over the land of Uz, a profound transformation was taking place. In the midst of profound suffering, in the heart of the storm, Job was finding a new perspective, a new depth of faith, and a new kind of relationship with his Creator, one rooted not in prosperity or calamity, but in humble reverence and unwavering trust. Chapter 16. Divine Restoration. Blessings Beyond Measure. The land of Uz, which had witnessed the depths of Job's misery, now stood as a testament to the boundless grace of the divine. The horizon, once tinged with the gloom of Job's sufferings, began to brighten, heralding a new dawn of hope and restoration. In the aftermath of the celestial encounter, a profound peace enveloped Job. The agonies of the past, while not forgotten, were overshadowed by a newfound understanding of God's sovereign will and the transient nature of earthly afflictions. This was not the uneasy stillness that precedes a storm, but the deep, resonant calm that follows it. News of Job's renewed favor with the divine spread rapidly across the lands. From near and far people came, not to offer hollow condolences as before, but to genuinely rejoice with him, to acknowledge his steadfastness, and to celebrate his redemption. They brought with them gifts of gold, silver, and livestock, offerings that mirrored the blessings that God was pouring out on Job. In a divine reversal of fortune, Job's wealth was not merely restored but doubled. The herds of camels, oxen, donkeys, and sheep multiplied, grazing contentedly under the watchful eye of the once destitute man. The fields and pastures came alive, bearing witness to a prosperity that was as much spiritual as it was material. But the blessings were not just in possessions. The house of Job once again echoed with the laughter and joy of children. 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him, each radiant with life, filling the voids of his heart. The daughters, in particular, were known throughout the land for their beauty, and Job, in a gesture that defied convention, ensured they received an inheritance alongside their brothers. Job lived to see 4 generations of descendants. He witnessed weddings and births, celebrations and milestones. Every moment was a testament to God's enduring mercy and the promises of restoration. Yet amidst all these blessings, Job's greatest treasure was the deepened relationship with his Creator. With a heart full of gratitude, he spent his days not in complacency, but in devotion, always remembering the lessons of the whirlwind, always cherishing the mysteries of the divine, always praising God for the blessings beyond measure. And so, in the land of Uz, the story of a man named Job became legendary, a tale of faith tested and restored, a chronicle of loss and gain, a narrative of pain and triumph. But above all, it became a testament to the boundless love and grace of God, who restores, redeems, and blesses beyond all human understanding. Chapter 17. Epilogue. The Latter Days. Job's renewed prosperity. In the golden hues of the setting sun, the land of Uz took on a serene glow. As the chapter of Job's trials closed, the landscape transformed to bear witness to the unfolding tale of his renewed prosperity. The arid and parched fields that once reflected Job's desolation now teemed with verdant growth, mirroring his resurgence. It is said that the latter days of Job were more blessed than his beginnings. The man who had once sat amidst ashes, a picture of despair and grief, now sat at the head of vast feasts, surrounded by friends and family who revelled in his renewed fortunes. The same community that had once whispered behind closed doors about Job's perceived sins now looked upon him with reverence. The shadow of his sufferings was evident, but it was vastly overshadowed by the glow of his redemption. He became a living testimony, a beacon of hope for all those who suffered, exemplifying that after the harshest of winters, spring does come. His wealth, already restored twofold, continued to flourish. The markets and trade routes buzzed with tales of Job's prosperity. Caravans laden with goods made their way to and from his lands, and merchants spoke with admiration of the upright man from Uz, who was blessed in all he undertook. Yet for Job, his true wealth lay not in the coffers of gold or the vast herds, but in the intangible riches of life. The laughter of his children, the respect of his peers, the wisdom gleaned from his trials, and above all, the deeper, more intimate knowledge of the God he served. In his latter days, Job took it upon himself to chronicle his journey, not a tale of his material prosperity, but a heartfelt testament of his spiritual odyssey. These scrolls, written with a wisdom that only trials can birth, became treasured texts, sought after by scholars and laymen alike. As years turned into decades, Job, with silver hair and a countenance marked by time, continued to lead his family and community with grace. The pain and scars of the past never truly left, but they became faded tattoos, reminders of a time of testing, and more importantly, of divine faithfulness. Job's life, replete with its ebbs and flows, became a parable in Uz and beyond. It was a story that resonated across generations, imparting lessons of resilience, faith, and the boundless mercy of God. And as the sun finally set on Job's life, his legacy remained, illuminating the annals of history, forever reminding humanity of the promise of restoration and the rewards of unwavering faith. Chapter 18. legacy of the endurer, the timeless tale of triumph and trust. Beyond the sands of Uz, beyond the epochs of history, the tale of Job began to ripple across time. The story of a man, not a myth, whose faith was tested beyond comprehension, became a beacon for countless souls navigating the turbulent seas of life. Job's narrative was not merely a story of loss and restoration. It was a testimony to the human spirit's unyielding strength and the profound depths of divine love. The man from Uz, once a paragon of prosperity, became an emblem of endurance. His legacy was not built upon the wealth he amassed or the children who surrounded him in his latter days, but upon the bedrock of his unwavering trust in the divine. Across the lands, from bustling marketplaces to tranquil monasteries, Job's story was told and retold. Rabbis and scholars dissected his dialogues, seeking the profound wisdom hidden within. His lamentations and pleas, his questions and confrontations, became a comforting script for those grappling with their own challenges. Generations arose that never knew the physical land of Uz, never walked its streets or bartered in its markets, yet they were intimately familiar with its most famous resident. They saw in Job a reflection of their own struggles, and more importantly, a beacon of hope. If Job could traverse the darkest valleys of despair and emerge not just whole but enhanced, then perhaps they too could find the strength to persevere. Mothers whispered his tale to their children, instilling in young hearts lessons of faith and resilience. Warriors on the battlefield remembered his endurance, drawing strength from his legacy. Kings and rulers pondered the divine discourses, seeking guidance in governance. But perhaps most impactful were those quiet moments of introspection, where individuals in the throes of their personal trials found solace in Job's journey. His story became a silent companion, a testament that they were not alone in their sufferings, and that dawn awaited beyond the darkest night. Job, the endurer, had unwittingly sown seeds of hope that would sprout across cultures and centuries. The tapestry of his life, woven with threads of pain, trust, challenge, and triumph, hung as a masterpiece in the gallery of human history. As the annals of time unfolded, empires rose and fell, and eras came and went, the legacy of Job remained undiminished. It was a tale not bound by time or territory. The man from Uz, through his life and his trials, had etched an eternal story, a timeless testament to the power of faith, the beauty of resilience, and the boundless love of the divine.